on paper. So that's good to that's good to know. I'm glad everybody came on. I appreciate it. Yeah, I hope you guys learned something tonight. I hope you enjoy the seminar tonight, and I hope we all just have fun. Generally, honestly, I think the most important part is the enjoyment and us having fun, especially during these difficult times. We're going through a lot of changes and transitioning with the quarantine, with the lockdown, with everything. This is starting to become the new norm, in a sense. And I just want to get started, just get things rolling with our panelists, and thank them for participating tonight and helping everyone that's on the call. So let's start off with the first question. The first question we have is, what tips do you offer for building a strong resume? I would like to start out with Ms. Torri on that question. And if you're ready, sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you that way.
You're fine. You said tips for building a strong resume. I think first understand, what you're applying for, because I think people that know me best know that I have about 4 to 5 resumes. Okay. And that's because they all are used for different jobs. If I'm applying for a management position, I use my management resume. If I'm, if I want to apply for more of a technical job, I have like a little technical resume. If I want to apply for a government job, I have kind of my standard government resume. So, what I would offer to everyone is that, make sure that you spend time marketing yourself, right? If you go to USA Jobs or if you go to Indeed, look at what they're looking for, and see if you have something that comes up as close to it and putting it in your resume. I'll share with you that for the last, 5 to 7 years, I've read a lot of resumes, and being a branch chief at a 3-star command, recruiting for cybersecurity professionals. And I did it when it really wasn't hot yet, to now where, everyone wants to get some type of cybersecurity degree and or cybersecurity certification. So, if that's something that, you've thought about, make sure that, you're competing, right? And I say competing, meaning, if I get 10 resumes and it's an entry-level cyber job, then, you've got that certification and that qualification that kind of line up together. Because what recruiters and managers, so the recruiter is the first step, and then they pass on a set of resumes to the hiring manager, okay? So I haven't been on the recruitment side, but I'm usually the one that gets that pile of resumes. And so, I just want to share my perspective of, hey, how do you do it? Torri, what are you looking for? It's not necessarily, I'd say a recipe, but I need to understand who you are on the paper, but before I say, hey, this is my 5 for the interview. So however creatively that you want to put in there exactly what you can bring to the table, that will always set you apart from anybody else. Some unique experience that you had a chance to work on, or a project that you think that no one else had a chance to do. I think I caught Stetson's doing some cloud management, cloud technology. That's the thing now, AI, artificial intelligence. So, even being a support personnel or having some type of overview as to that technology is really big now. I mean, even if you attended kind of like this, a Zoom meeting, and you talked about cloud technology for 30 minutes, now you've been exposed to it. And so you can bring that knowledge forth and into the table once you start going, especially into the interview. And I'll just stop there so that the other panelists can give some more good advice.
So some of the things you mentioned, so you have about 4 to 5 resumes that you maintain. You take time to make sure your resume is marketing yourself. So that's a good one. I think that is very important, that we need that needs to stand out in what you mentioned. You said look at the job description and put what's in the job description in your resume. Kind of tailor your resume to that job. That's very important because a lot of people don't mention that. So I definitely wanted to make sure that was reiterated back. And make your certifications and qualifications really stand out in your resume. So those need to definitely be up front, and put in your unique experiences and your unique explanations. So for instance, if you have a technology that is the hot item of this decade or this year, put that technology in. Like you mentioned, for instance, cybersecurity and cloud computing. And then from there, you mentioned, or for instance, you mentioned a particular solution that you're exposed to for whatever, even if it's in a conference or a seminar, that exposure can be put in your resume or in your CV for display. So, before I forgot to just say hi to you and give you a chance to say hi to the participants as well, if you want to take a minute to do that.
You were saying say hi, and
I was saying I forgot to start out by saying hi to you and give you a minute to say hi to the other participants as well.
Right.
So I'm a little bit out of order.
This is a distinguished panel that I'm on, so I'm going to kind of make sure I defer and give them an opportunity to speak. But if you're totally interested into IT, I did put my new email address in the chat. So just let me know that dialogues are important. These conversations are important because folks ask, well, how do I get the interview, right? Well, the interview is based on your resume, and so you can't. It's like a process. You can't have the interview, right? To get the opportunity without the resume. And if you're not a strong writer, then you get with somebody that is, or you pay somebody. There's a lot of routes that you can go. This is one of them. It's called the mentoring. I have about two to three folks that I generally try to make sure that by the time I retire in 10 years, there is somebody else coming along and that I've helped, right? And that is in mentoring. That is just, hey, I can't find a babysitter. Who do you know? All those types of things I think come full circle, and I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to ask Ms. Amber. First, let me say hi to you and give you a chance to address the participants as well. And then I want to follow up with the same question.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm really nervous. Really nervous.
That's okay. Let's start back with a reiteration of the question for a sec. What types, what tips do you offer for building a strong resume? Can you tell I'm nervous also?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So a couple of tips that I would give in building a strong resume. So what I would say is, one thing that I do when I'm recruiting is I'll ask my program managers, okay, for this specific position that you're looking to fill, give me some keywords, give me some key skills that you're looking for for this position. And so when I'm searching, I'll search for those keywords. So when you're building your resume, think about, look, like Torri said, look at the job description. Make yourself familiar with the job description. And if you have skills that match that job description, make sure you highlight your success with those skills. Specifically, you know, with IT, if you're really good with the cloud base or just any other type skill in cybersecurity, if you're really good with cybersecurity, just make sure that you highlight a success, highlight something that you did really well, a career highlight that you have had, so that when I pull up your resume, I see that cybersecurity, that skill pops out, but then I can say, okay, well, also Tessa did this in regards to cybersecurity. So that makes a difference.
All right. And Ms. Desland, how are you? Am I saying your name right, first off?
You did. First try. That's
okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. I hate to mess up a person's name. I'm telling you, you have a wonderful name too. So.
No. Well, hello, everyone. So glad to see everyone participating. Definitely glad to be a part of this panel. I have some wonderful panelists also that have provided some great tips and suggestions, which mine will sound very similar. So if you hear something more than once or twice, you should take note. I want to let y'all know you should definitely take note, because this is really good. But I'll also continue with the question, and the response is very much the same. You know, use what I like to call it, and tell the students that I work with, is use your cheat sheet. That job description is your cheat sheet. Take some time out to research that company, know what they're looking for, and use the cheat sheet that they provide you with. They are telling you everything that you need to know in that job description. And those are the things that they want and would like to see on that resume. And a lot of times before you even make it to, you know, the recruiter, you have to make it through their ATS system. You have to go through what they have already listed in the job description. Again, your cheat sheet. And so you want to make sure those things are highlighted in some way, form, or fashion on your resume. So making sure that that's in there, those keywords, and you can find that information in the description, in the qualifications area. What are the requirements? So look through those sections and highlight some of that. And then take some time to research yourself. Think about, you know, what type of experience do I have that is of value? So be your own best, or be your own advocate for your own experience. I think it was Tessa. I can't see everyone on the screen now, but you mentioned that you graduated, Tessa, you graduated college, just recently graduated, you have a half-page resume. So yes. Think about everything that you have been involved in. I know students that I work with in engineering, you know, they just their academic experience, and those are projects. Those are real hands-on projects. So think about, you know, whether it was something that you've done in the classroom, on a team project. Think about your own service, maybe community service. So really think about all of the experience that you wouldn't normally consider experience. Think about how that can add value to your resume and helping to lengthen that resume information. Because all of that plays a part in marketing who you are and presenting yourself on that resume. So don't discount the experience that you already have. So really think about that. And so I know it was mentioned, you know, having more than one resume. Torri, I think you mentioned you have about 4 or 5 resumes on hand, just depending on what type of opportunity that you're applying to. So consider that for yourself. Have a good master resume. So that way you can take bits and pieces and create, you know, if you see a very specific position for, I'll focus on like engineering specifically, but mechanical, some of our disciplines, mechanical engineering or project manager or process engineer, those can be different in nature and things that they're looking for. But if you have a master resume, you've done that research on yourself, you've taken some time to really think about the experience that you've gained, you haven't discounted any of the experience that you've gained, and so you have something to pull from. And so from there, you're able to create these multiple resumes that you can tailor from that job description, from that cheat sheet, you can tailor to match what they're looking for. And then also consider asking for feedback. Some of the students that I work with think they're great. I think they're great, but sometimes they have a hard time asking for that feedback to know if what they're producing is just as great. And so making sure you work with someone that you know will not just tell you, yes, this is good, but someone who will provide you with that constructive criticism or that feedback that will help you along the way. So those are, those are some of the tips that I would ask that everyone take into consideration when you're looking at how you can design your marketing piece, how you can advocate for yourself, be an advocate for yourself in selling and marketing your experience. Consider those things. Those are some things, those are my tips.
All right, thank you so much. So to highlight a little bit, Ms. Amber, you mentioned that one of the key things, one of the key tips would be to basically highlight your skills that match the JD or job description, and to highlight your successes and accomplishments. Ms. Desland, you said use the job description as your cheat sheet. That's a very unique way of putting it. And you said also what type of experience, make sure you base your master resume based off of your experience and your career focus. So you have something to capture from, to field, or to populate those other resumes that Ms. Torri mentioned before. I wanted to ask you, can you also elaborate on what an ATS system is?
Yes, ATS, applicant tracking systems. And Torri, and this is just the feedback that I received from some of the employers. Yourself and Amber may be able to speak to this even more, but applicant tracking systems is something that we do encourage our students to consider when they're thinking about the information to place on their resume. Because if they don't have that, I like to call, if you don't have that immediate connection with a live person, you're applying to an application, online application. It is sometimes referred to in our environment as the black hole, because sometimes you may not hear anything back. It's, you know, you just never know, but sometimes you do. And there's steps that we may touch on it, you know, throughout our conversation on how you can do that. So I'll leave that on the table for another piece of the conversation. But the applicant tracking system, so that is where your resume is going, not the black hole, but that is where your resume is going once you submit that.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback off of what Desland said. So yeah, that's one of the things that I even encourage our current employees is, because you're in that applicant tracking system, you're in our system. When we have current positions, say for instance, you know, you're completing your master's degree and, you know, you learn some new skills while you're in school, or just even while you're in your current position, add those skills up, make sure you're updating your resume and you add those skills, so that, again, when I'm searching for those new positions, that it pulls up that you have that cybersecurity certificate, or that, you know, whatever the new skill that you have learned. So yeah, I'll just piggybacking off what Desland said.
Okay, and just to add to that, so you're saying as we learn those skills, we add them to our resume so that an applicant tracking system can pick it up, even though we've just recently learned that skill, or learning that skill right as we speak.
Learning, you're learning, you're gaining a new certificate, learning a new program. Yeah, I would make sure I would keep my resume as up to date as possible, because, you know, things are constantly changing. So you want to just make sure that you have the latest and greatest on your resume, so that it stays fresh. Okay,
understood. And one other thing that Ms. Desland, that you mentioned also that's very important that I want to reiterate was ask for feedback, because people have a hard time understanding, you know, why they didn't get the job or why they weren't in that particular candidacy, and asking for feedback helps with that.
Yes, and even if it's, as I mentioned, you know, someone that you trust, someone that you know will not just tell you yes. Sometimes even ask the recruiter that you're speaking with, not in a way to where you sound desperate for the job, but maybe you and frame the question in a way that truly lets them know that you're wanting to make sure you're providing them with the information that they are asking for, that they are looking for when you're going through that process. So is there anything additional that you would have liked to have seen on this resume, or is there any information that I could have provided you to help better express, my experience as a candidate for this particular role? But definitely that.
Okay. Ms. Torri, I'm going to go back to you with the next question. How would a middle-level to senior-level careerist highlight all of their work experience on a one-page resume? Did you get that?
Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties here.
Okay.
I apologize there. So if you're applying for mid-level to a senior level position, don't use a one-page resume there, okay? The first part of the resume, you're going to talk about, especially, we're in Huntsville is a community that they've got tons of wonderful engineers everywhere. So the arsenal's here. So if you're applying to anything like that, then obviously you're going to talk about, if you don't have a security clearance, then, there you can get one, right? So you're going to put something about that in there because, she talked about what APT a minute ago. The government goes through a system called Resumix, right? So you want to put something about a clearance, right? Able to obtain a clearance, even if you don't, okay? That way you put clearance up there and then, Resumix picks it up. So, don't go into the game like you're going to win, okay? Always go in the game like you're going to win it. And I say that because, you never know who's looking for what. The position that the person's hiring for might be a senior level position, but then they get funding cut, and now, it's an entry level position, and then it's up to you whether or not you want to take the job or not. Okay, I wouldn't suggest if it's a mid or senior to have a one-page resume. You're not going to get it all on the page, okay? Because the first part, you're going to give them your address, tell them who you are. You're going to hit with security clearance certifications and or education. Put that up front. Don't let anybody try to find it. I say that because I remember there's one time and I got a call and I'm like, oh, well, Torri, you gave this to me. You really like this person. And I could have sworn I saw the person had a master's degree somewhere, and sure enough, they had 30 hours of something. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's my fault. So, don't sell yourself short. Don't put important information to the back. Bring all of that to the front, okay? And then you start talking about the job that you have now or your last job, okay? So think about it this way, that you don't know how long that person's going to read your resume, okay? So whatever you've got, make sure you give it to them in that first 3/4 of a page, okay? Because especially your experience, you've been, you said mid to senior level, they're going to see, are you a project manager? Can you lead teams, right? What have you done? Where have you cut efficiencies? Have you streamlined anything? What kind of budget did you manage, right? And I say that because everybody is going to say something about that if it's that type of position, okay? So keep that in mind, right? If I got 10 resumes and everybody's telling me the same thing, then I've got to choose which one what project do I think is harder? But only you can tell me that, right? So think about it that way. Back to 2 pages. So your first page is you're really going to talk to me about where you live, your education, your importance. You're going to bring it down to you're going to talk about your first job or the job that you're in now, and then the other job. And so for me, that's probably 2 pages. Now, I will say senior level jobs are different. and I'll bring this up because the last couple of interviews I've had, which was recent, right? Last 6 months, I had 2. God is good because I got both opportunities and had to select one. So God is good. They ask you to brief now. So in a senior level position, if you're looking at a GS 14 or 15 position on the Arsenal, be prepared to present a brief, right? And it's usually a briefing of your choice, but there's a panel. And so you've passed the resume part and you get to the second part. And Colonel Walker, this is kind of information I just want to pass on to you, sir. You know, they're looking now for some type of brief, okay? About, you know, briefing to senior leadership, briefing, you know, okay, you got an opportunity to brief in SES in 7 slides, tell me what you're going to brief. I got that at both interviews in the last 6 months. So those are the types of things for the senior level positions that they are looking for now. Last year, when I did the same thing, I didn't get that type of feedback, but that, I guess this is the trend. This is where things are going. Mid-level positions, yes, get your resume there, and then you'll face some type of maybe panel, right? And then they'll discuss, you know, who's the best fit for that particular organization. And I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you. So just to reiterate of a few things that I'll go over a few things that you mentioned. You said don't use a one-page resume, especially when you're talking about a senior to mid-level position. You said the position or the resume should include where you live, about your objective or qualification experience, and also it's going to include, the first page is going to include your education, your highlights, and your first job. So one page wouldn't suffice, in other words. You said you always want to bring the important information up top. And that was some of the things I just mentioned, is your experience, your highlights, your education. So that first page is just going to consist of that information, most likely. And you said be prepared to brief at a senior level position. So your resume is not going to be the end of your conversation or your write-up. You will have to brief in front of a panel, and a mid-level position will have a panel discussion as well, just not a brief, when you're talking about at least the federal government positions. Okay, that was some very good information. All right, and Ms. Amber?
So one thing I would say is, so there are 3 main types of resumes, and the type of resume that you probably want to do is called the functional resume. And what that does is it highlights your, like I said, your experience, your successes. So if you want to try to condense that resume to 1 or 2 pages, make sure that that's what you're doing. You're not doing chronological, because, you know, that will have that 15 pages if it's if you're applying for a senior level position. So that would be my tip, is just to make sure that you are doing that type of resume. You're working at ABC Inc. And so under ABC Inc., you list your maybe top 3 successes that you've had, and then move on to the next. So that way it could help condense it. It still shows your experience, but then it definitely highlights your successes. Or you could switch it up and do, let's just say if you were applying for an administrative position, under administrative, what are some of the key things that I've done administrative wise? Or if I was under cybersecurity, what are some of the key things that I've done under cybersecurity? So you could do it a couple of different ways, but I would say, just, of course, always make sure that you're highlighting your successes, and that will help kind of condense it. Okay,
and to go over some key points you made, you said to condense your resume, it's best to use, there are a few types of resumes, but the main one to use for the senior level position and to condense your experience would be that functional resume rather than the chronological resume. You said don't use the chronological resume because it will bloat your resume pages and expand out to that more 15-page resume when you're in the senior level. And you said focus. You said make sure that you definitely highlight your experience in your bring your highlights to the forefront as a part of the senior level to mid-level resumes that you're submitting.
Right.
Okay. All right. Ms. Desland, same question. And just so we're on the same, so everyone hears, the question is, how would a mid-level or senior level careerist highlight all of their work experience on a one-page resume? So we're refreshed about the question.
Sure, I'm just really going to reiterate what has already been said, just because that's not my primary focus in what I do as far as training on resumes. But I would definitely agree, a one-pager is not going to capture all of that experience. Hopefully not. Hopefully you've been doing some things. You've been gaining some experience over that period of time for the level in which you're at. So I would definitely agree a one-pager is not going to capture that. Be comfortable with going over.
Okay. So pretty straightforward. The one-page resume is not going to do it. So make sure that you're comfortable being uncomfortable and going over one page.
Yes, accept it.
All right. Hey, I'm all for cut dry. Okay, so let's hop on to our next question. How do you create a resume if the most relevant experience is a position held 10 years ago, as opposed to a position most recently held? So I'm going to read that again. How do you create a resume if the most relevant position is a position you've held 10 years ago, opposed to a position most recently held? And just to keep on our same structure, sorry, I lost my thought. Ms. Torri, I'm going to start with you.
So that is a challenge. I'll acknowledge that. I really think that you find a way to bring that that relevant job experience, move it to the front a bit. You don't want us, I say us, hiring managers to get tired, right? So if I don't see it on page 1 or page 2, but you're wanting me to find that relevant experience on page 4, when I got 10 resumes and my boss says I got to turn something in a few minutes and I got to go quickly, you know, think about it from the person's perspective that's actually going to have to find it and read it. Okay. So chances are, if it's in the first page, and I'm saying it again, it's in the first page to halfway down the second, right? Because you're going to get tired. You know, everyone's going to get tired after that, right? It just happens to the best of us. And you know, I'll give you my apologies here. Make sure maybe you condense the other stuff to bring that stuff that's in that 10-year period up. And because, you know, you got to pass ResumeX, ATP, and all these other things. So I understand, you know, you're picking up keywords and you're getting those into your resume. But at the same time, when it comes down to it, those folks have to be able to find it. Okay. So, you know, if I've got one spot, right, and I got 2 jobs, but I got 40 people, okay, that apply to that, you know, 1 or 2 jobs, I'm going through fast on a first read, right? And then that second read, I'll have maybe, it's like, probably this is what teachers do, I don't know, but this is what I find I do and my colleagues do. So then you get 5, right? You get 5 to 10 strong resumes, okay? And I'll put them in a pile. So all of these other resumes, I'll sit here, okay? But I put the 5 here that I want to call back, or, you know, and I tell my team, I'm like, okay, read these, and what do you think? Okay? That's what I do. Because here's the thing, I want it to be a good fit, okay? Now, at that point, it back, and now it's in order. Now, is it the same order that, you know, that I have in my head? I don't know, but sometimes it is, okay? So here's the thing. Just remember, you're always competing, right? You're always competing. You're competing for that job, okay? So if it's the one that you want, you're gonna spend the time in it. Just like you're gonna spend the time to do your hair, put your makeup on, and all this other stuff. So if it's the job you want, okay, you'll get it because you're spending the time in it. I mean, you know, the panelists talked about do your research. I can remember the last job I applied for, the building was across the street, but I didn't know more than that. I needed to figure out, you know, who's in charge, right? You know, what is their bread and butter? What's their mission? What do they sell? What kind of people are there? What kind of engineers? What are they doing? Where are they getting their parts from? So you've got to put the puzzle together, you know, put the effort forth to be in that spot. I've been doing this for a little while, and I got friends on the arsenal, outside of the arsenal, and you'll find that especially once you get into that particular niche, right, that you're looking for, everybody knows each other, right? So, you know, if you get a job here and then I call Susie Q and say, Susie, do you know Josh? Oh, I know Josh. So now, you know, always make sure that you're maintaining that great resume that you just put out there, right? So if you apply to this job and this person knows this person, right, they're going to talk. So make sure that you're always putting your best foot forward. And you're not burning any bridges, you know, so you're applying for this job, right? And you've got a great resume. Now everyone knows that, you know, Susie's really, really, really qualified and she wants that job. So I hope that helps.
No, it does. Thank you. So Ms. Amber, I'm going to move right along to you. Same question.
So again, I would go back to that functional resume. The experience is 10 years old. Put your experience on that first page. So if the job description, again, and I'm just using basic, you know, not basic, but just simple things. If the job is an administrative position and your experience is from 10 years ago, highlight your bullet is administrative, and then you list everything that you've accomplished under administration under that bullet. So it's on the first page, and then it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't highlight the 10 years ago. It highlights what the recruiter is looking for. So that would be my advice, to, again, use that functional resume, research functional resumes, see how they're set up, and set your resume that way.
Okay. And Ms. Desland, what feedback would you have?
It would be the same, looking at how you can group that information together, because you think about, when you read things, you're not reading things from the bottom to the top, you're reading from the top to the bottom. So think about, again, going back to putting yourself into the recruiter's position, or the hiring manager. They are looking for that information at the top. But one thing I wanted to add as well, so if that information or that experience was 10 years ago, what have you been doing since then? Is there any relative experience or transferable skills? How have you continued to remain relevant? Because those may be some questions that will need to be answered, either through some additional experience listed on your resume. Maybe you've taken a training class or something that, you know, you see these online now, Coursera, Udemy, I can't ever pronounce that very well, but Udemy, yes, okay. So think about, you know, what are some other things that you could have been doing or have done, thank you, that help you to remain relevant, because that's a long time. Things change, you know, from day to day, from year to year, and that's a decade ago. So really consider, you know, how are you remaining relevant, not just with that 10 years ago experience, but what are some other things that you've been able to do too that you can highlight with that functional resume, with that information? And if you have not, what are some things that you can consider doing today or now after this to show that you're still relevant in that particular area that you're interested in applying?
Okay, thank you. You mentioned something very important that I want to get your elaboration on. You mentioned transferable skills. Can you elaborate a little bit further on transferable skills?
So when you think about, I'm going to use myself as a mom because y'all seen in the background a little coworker probably walking behind me. Those are my little children. So I'll relate this to a project management type role. I am the chief operating officer of my home. That is my title as a mom. I have to coordinate, I have to schedule, I have to plan, I have to forecast, I have to do estimating. These are all key terms that come into play with project management. I'm not saying don't use that if you're a mom, not saying you can't use that, just not knowing how strong that may be perceived in the market. But think about the job that you are doing currently or you have done that have very similar skills. And this is going to take some work on your part, research. Think about some of the skill sets that you have gained that sound very similar to what that particular role is looking for, some of those key buzzwords that they may have in the job description or in the qualifications area. And this goes back to don't discount the experience that you've already gained or have been able to gain because it's worth something. It just all depends on how you sell it to someone or market it rather to someone, to that hiring manager. So really consider those transferable skills that you've been able to gain throughout the time. You know, again, going back to college, whether it's been, you know, some type of job that you've been working in that 10-year, you know, since those, you know, 10-year time frame or 10 years ago job. Think about, you know, what you've been able to gain from those experiences. Really sit down or talk to someone, talk it out with someone, and see if they can help you identify what that looks like. But those are transferable skills, or at least my definition.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. So go right ahead. Well, before you do that, we're short on time. Go ahead but let's keep our conversation short because we definitely want to get all the questions in as much as possible. Okay.
No, I just wanted to piggyback off of Desland and also just mention volunteer experience as well. I know, you know, Desland mentioned jobs and, you know, things that we do as moms and dads and things like that, but also your volunteer experience. Don't, you know, if you're the treasurer for an organization, you manage money, you budgeting, you're forecasting like Desland mentioned. So also think about that as well.
All right, thank you. So let's go right into the next question. So elaborate on the most attractive resume styles that human resources professionals look for at first. Ms. Torri, can you start there?
Oh gosh, maybe I need to defer on this one. I was never in human resources.
I was a little reluctant to ask you the question, but that's fine.
Bad advice.
That's fine. Miss Amber, can you elaborate a little bit on that question? Any tips?
I keep mentioning this. The functional resume is probably the resume that I'm attracted to the most, just because it gives me all the information that I'm looking for on that first page. It groups the information for me, so I don't have to search through, you know, the various jobs that you may have had, you know, to get the information that I need. So grouping that information together is very attractive for me as a recruiter.
Okay, Ms. Desland.
I would have to agree with Amber. The functional resume, I will say, you know, it depends. A lot of the students that I work with at entry level going right into the job market. And so chronological usually works best for them because they have minimal work experience, professional work experience. But that functional resume, it puts everything that you need right there for that recruiter to see or human resource representative to see.
Okay. So really quick, and if you can answer this quickly, when you know to differentiate between the chronological and functional resume, what is if you said a quick sentence about okay, now this job description deserves a chronological or a functional, what would you recommend, Ms. Amber?
I think just like what Desland mentioned, if you're just out of college, the chronological is the best, because it is, you don't have a whole lot of experience. So it allows you to list the things that you have done better. But let's say you've been on a career 5 years or more, the functional is probably the best, because there you have, you know, the most experience. And then also it just depends on the position. If it's an entry-level position, but you've had that volunteer experience, you have that transferable experience to where you can speak to that job, then, you know, it just, I guess it really just depends on the job that you're going after.
Understood. Ms. Desland, do you have any tips in that question as well?
I would say the same thing. You are tailoring, whether it be the chronological or functional, you're tailoring it to yourself, your experience, as well as to that employer, that job.
Understood. Okay. So on to the next question. When building my LinkedIn network for my job search, should I connect with everyone or be more selective, such as targeting connections who have certain roles? Ms. Torri, can I start with you?
Yeah, I guess I can't answer that one. So it just depends on what you want to do. You know, what is your goal on LinkedIn, right? Is it to link up with other professionals? Is it to get a promotion, a different job? So for me, it's, what is that end goal, right? Come from the cyber world, so, you know, less is more, right? So, you know, sometimes associations that you think are, you know, benign don't end up benign. So, you know, just make sure that you're making an educated decision, especially on social media,
Okay. And Ms. Amber, same question.
I would say you want to be intentional. You don't want to make it like an Instagram or a Facebook and you're just friending everyone. You want to be intentional about the connections that you make, because, you know, you're setting yourself up for a career. You know, you want to be, you just don't want to have everyone connected, especially if it's not in line with what you're hoping to achieve in your career.
And thank you for keeping that concise, ladies, also. And Ms. Desland, your tips?
Same thing, be purposeful in that connection, making sure that beforehand that your profile is up to date. It looks professional, your photo looks professional, you have information from your resume on there, and it's filled in, so that if this person, because you have a 50-50 shot on them responding, so take that chance, but make sure your information is up to date. So if they do respond to you, they're first going to look at, they're going to look at your profile. So make sure they know what they're connecting to, or who they're connecting to.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's go into the next question. What does it take to have an effective resume that stands out? What are some major things to avoid listing, and how long should a resume typically be? That's almost three questions. So let's stick to the first two parts of that, because we've already kind of gone into how long a resume should be typically. So what does it take to have an effective resume that stands out, and what are some of the major things to avoid listing? Sorry.
So we're going back to the basics here. It's, you know, whenever you have a problem, you look at what are the mission requirements, and you do the same thing with a resume, right? It is, what are they looking for? So you need to put what they're looking for in your resume, right? And it doesn't have to be exactly what they need, right? But it's just the, I think someone said it was, you know, you're being intentional. You know, you budget, right? You know, you are able to execute different processes. And so, you know, if it's a process that is inside the job description and then you kind of twist it and make it yours, that's what they're looking for. So, you know, you're being very intentional on how to incorporate what they've just listed in that job announcement, in that position description, you're putting it into your resume. And that's the reason why you have to have a couple of different resumes, right? And then you decide, okay, well, which one can I pick? Because which one can I tweak to make it look like that? That's the key.
Yeah, so I would just agree. Look, you have to tailor your resume to the position that you're going after. So what's going to make your resume stand out is those keywords. If they're looking for budgeting, if they're looking for your ability to brief, if they're looking for your certain certificate, you want to make sure that your resume specifically lists those things. That's going to attract the recruiter. That's going to allow the ability for your resume to be picked up through a system. So yeah, you have to do your research. Make sure it's in line with that job.
Okay. And Ms. Desland, your comments?
Yes. So all of that, I would definitely agree with. And I would also say, think about how you're structuring that information. What type of sentence are you putting those keywords and buzzwords in that you found in the job description, knowing that's what the employer is looking for? Make it sound more like a demonstrated ability, an action item, a power word. So you developed, you produced, you managed, and how can you incorporate that keyword into that sentence headed by a demonstrated ability, action word, a power word, so that it sounds it's a strong statement. It's not just, oh, I just did this, very lackadaisical. It is a very strong statement that you're starting with.
Hey, Stetton. We
Yes.
have a question in the chat from Daryl Walker. He asks, how long is too long for a non-USA jobs resume? Front and back or front filled pages only? How favorable is a hybrid resume, one that is a mix of both functional and chronological?
Did everyone hear that question? Ms. Torri, we can start with you for answering that.
So non-USA jobs resume, you take all the time you need then on it, like no more than 4, and so, you're talented, so you got a lot of stuff to say. You've done a lot of things. So I don't know if I give you tips, but I think that the hybrid resume thing may not necessarily work, because then you're throwing all, if I'm reading a lot of resumes, and this is just my perception. If I'm reading a lot of resumes and I'm trying to keep up anyway, and then you switch from left to right on me, left to right, it's hard for me to pick up what I'm looking for, because typically the hiring manager has a check sheet, right? And they're going down the list of the things that they're looking for from a desired candidate. Okay, so if you check 4 or 5 of mine off of the list, I'm going to put it here. But if I'm reading your resume and I'm going from left to right, and I can't determine, where I am or where that information ended up going, then it's going to be harder. It's a harder read, and a harder read makes, and this is real life, I guess. A harder read on a resume puts you just in a different pile. It's like, okay, well, let me come back to it if I have time. And that's just being honest.
No, not the different pile, not that pile. Ms. Amber, your tips.
Yeah, I would agree. If you're gonna go with chronological, go with chronological. If you're gonna go with functional, go with functional. Keep it the same all the way through, because like Torri said, you don't want the recruiter or the hiring manager having to jump back and forth to see where they are in reviewing their resume. I would definitely say do not do front and back resumes. If you're going to have 2 pages, do 1 page, 2 page. Do not do that, because like Torri said, if we are reviewing 10, 20 resumes, I may not flip it over and look on the back. I'm just going to miss all the information on the back. So if you're going to do that, keep it 1, 2 pages. Try not to go to 3 pages if at all possible, because again, that's just a lot of paper, a lot of information to review. So keep it consistent. Stick to 2 pages. Do not do front and back.
Okay. Ms. Desland, your tips.
I would say the same thing. Just be considerate of the person that has to review your resume. You think about how much would you want to read when you have 100 or 200 of the same thing coming through. So definitely be considerate of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a.
I was gonna say we have another question in the chat.
Go right ahead.
Okay, this one's from Joseph Moss. He says, if you have quality assurance experience in the automotive industry, how can you best display your abilities as it pertains to mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering? So he's asking, how can you showcase that those skills that he does have are transferable to another industry?
Okay, Ms. Torri, would you like to answer that first?
So I don't have any engineering experience. I apologize. But I can tell you that, you know, especially in the IT world, everything is very transferable, right? Because you learn the same processes and procedures. And I'll take my own experience, right? This last 6 months, I'll share with you guys that I was working at the same command for a really, really long time, right? And it wasn't until about 2 months ago where I said, I'm gonna just do something different, right? I'm just gonna do something different. And I had to, and I'm still, what's the word? I'm only, 4 weeks in, but I have to trust, right, that I know cybersecurity and I can do cybersecurity anywhere, at any time. So it's the same thing with the engineering, right? You know that you can do this type of engineering. You need to apply exactly those same processes and principles to that next field. You know, you've got to trust yourself that that's transferable and that you can do that.
Okay, and Ms. Amber, what would your tips be?
I would say that's where you'll have to do your research. Research the position to see how your previous experience does fit into the job that you're applying to. So, you know, you said the automotive experience, so look, quality assurance, research that job, research what someone, you know, in that position actually does, and then use your network. You know, this is a great organization to be a part of, and so you never know, you know, reach out to the members in the organization to see who does that work. Talk to them about your previous experience, and they could help you to tailor your resume to fit that job.
Okay, and Ms. Desland, your tips?
I would go with all of the above. Utilize your networks. We talked about LinkedIn as well. Look for someone that may work in that particular company and reach out, or multiple people reach out in that specific role and see if they can help you also talk through your experience that you have. I'm certain you have, because there are so many transferable skills there, and see how they can help you to tailor it to fit on the resume and for the particular role. And maybe even ask if they wouldn't mind passing your resume along for consideration.
Okay. So that is the end of our session. We went over a little bit, but I think everyone agrees that this was very informative. I want to thank all our panelists for giving all these tips and advice. You ladies did absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it. And thank you. And now I get to turn it back over to Miss Brittany. I know I'm doing this in the wrong order, so I'm the one that's messing up. Or do I turn it over to Jason? I'm sorry, I'm lost now.
It goes to Jason.
Jason, I'm sorry. I said Miss Brittany and I meant Jason. You guys look nothing alike.
Well, first off,
Jason, turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Staden, for moderating. You did an awesome job. Thank you, Amber, Desland, Torri, for all of your expertise that you guys provided us with today. I want to thank all of the people who attended. Thank you for, viewing, and I hope you all got some good notes and some good takeaways from this. So I just want to leave you with our next session will be Level Up 104. That's going to be on August 27th, and that's going to be navigating corporate culture. So that should be a very good one. Also, if you're interested about more things that BDPA does, you can, we have our national conference coming up on August 20th through 22nd. You can find out more information about that on BDPA2020.com. And that's all I have. So thank you all for joining us. If you enjoyed this and you want to let the panelists know that you enjoyed it, can you please just drop a line, a thank you, or a thumbs up or something in the comments, in the chat section, so let them know that you enjoyed it. And you all have a great night. And Torri, Amber, Desland, Stedden, Rosalind, Brittany, John, can y'all hang back for a few minutes? Thank you.